unresolved childhood trauma, drama or trauma, and what that means usually is here's part of it, an inability to grieve, and to grieve means to feel loss. And this means that you do not allow yourself to suffer when you need to suffer. And what this does is it doesn't allow you to express honestly and openly how you feel about things, and you become like the bottle, the bottle of Coca-Cola or the can of beer that somebody shakes, right? It just, the pressure builds up inside. And suffering is a necessary part of life if you want to grow. It's necessary to experience a certain level of suffering if you want to grow as a person. Life without suffering is unavoidable. Look at it that way, right? Yes. Life without some level of pain or discomfort, there we go, there's the word we're looking for, discomfort, is impossible. A good quality life without some level of discomfort is impossible. So a lot of psychological drivers in a person's mind actually come from the inability to express the fact that you're suffering. Because as a child, what happens is that you have experiences that you are told are normal. But as a child, you don't know what normal is, right? And by normal, these people mean this is good. Everybody experiences. And as a child, you don't know what that really means, so you accept everything as the truth. For example, I was reading last week about some woman who had a lot of problems in her life because her parents told her that all adults were angels. So she grew up believing that all adults were angels, and this caused her to have certain compartmentalization in her mind in order to perceive reality and live. And it was basically, the way the information was presented to her was false, right? And so she wasn't able to develop properly, and children accept everything as the truth from their parents, and they don't, because they don't have the experience, they don't have the analysis skills. Yeah, and if you follow the principle that everybody instinctively knows what is right and what is wrong, then at a very early age you learn to bury if you think about it like this. In China, in the past, having smaller feet was considered beautiful for women. So they used to wrap bandages around girls' feet to keep the feet small, and this didn't allow the feet to grow properly, and so when the feet didn't grow properly, these people had problems as adults. And a lot of information that we get from our parents, it's like bandages around our body or our mind. They stop, it doesn't allow us to grow. It stops us from growing because the information we get contradicts the universal laws. So
many times, yes.
I mean, there's a basic universal law which is, in essence, do no harm, right? Yeah, it's do no harm, or at least do as little harm as possible, right? Right? I mean, all diseases have an element of, the fact that they're lifestyle diseases, right? And it's, you know, it's the way it's the way that it is. Okay, for example, look at old people and the shapes of their body. By the time someone is 60 or 70 years old, from the shape of a person's body, you can determine, especially if you're a doctor, you can determine what their job was in their life. You can determine their attitude. You can determine their approach to a lot of things. You can see if they have a positive posture or a negative posture. And there's a tendency for people who are fearful, scared, or afraid to do this. And as some people get older, you begin to see their body sort of lean forward, lean over, and it's symbolic of their I think their attitude to life. You can
many symptoms are symbolical language of universe to us.
Look, here's a very simple example. Why do a lot of women have really big asses? Why do they have really big asses? Right? There's two reasons. Okay, the first reason is that when they give birth, the pelvis expands and doesn't contract the same way very often. The second reason is that they spend most of their life sitting on their ass. And that's where that's where the gravity goes, that's where the weight goes, and they just end up with big asses. Because I know that if I see someone like that, I know they spend most of the time sitting down. Because if you're up and you're mobile and you're active and you're walking around, your body has a different posture, your body has a different shape. You can see people's... Now there's, okay, a certain level of part of that may be the person's natural physiology, but even that physiology can be inherited. So, what you're looking at is not just your lifestyle, but an intergenerational lifestyle. Your habits might not be your habits. For example, not every voice in your head is you. Right?
Right, absolutely right.
Not every voice in your head is you. So not every one of your habits is you. These are things we pick up and collect from other people around about us.
Yes, but firstly you must define who is you.
Oh yeah, that's a difficult process. Possible, but difficult.
Difficult definition, probably, because...
You have to find which voice is your voice. Yeah, I think you have to understand why you are doing what you are doing. What is your purpose, right? And then that creates who you are. I don't think you are something and then you do something. I think you do something and you become a result of your actions. You become a result of what you choose to do.
Okay, the purpose. Okay, but this is another...
defines who you are, though, because you become a result of your actions. It's not that you are a certain person, and because you're a certain person, you do a certain thing. You become a result of your actions, because you can do anything. So you can choose to go in many different directions. You become a result of your actions. You become a result of your choices. It's the principle of responsibility. It's the principle of understanding the results of your actions and the results of other people's actions. It's what's called conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is the ability to understand not only the results of your actions in the long term, but also the results of other people's actions in the long term. Because if you can't see the results of everyone's actions in the long term, you're just going to sit on your ass, eat ice cream, and tell everyone else to eat ice cream, because that's what makes you feel good in the moment. And Conscientiousness is the personality trait of being careful or vigilant. Conscientious implies a desire to do a task well and to take obligations to others seriously. Conscientious people tend to be efficient and organized as opposed to easygoing and disorderly.
Okay.
So, and this is this has been recognized in the socio-political environment, where people who don't have this ability or skill tend to follow groups and group identity. They don't have an individual identity. Because they don't have an individual identity, they identify with the group and have the group identity. And this is the foundation, this is one of the foundations for socialism, Marxism, and communism, is that people who are orientated towards supporting, not organizing, not running, but supporting and following these ideas, are not careful or vigilant about what's happening in the world around about them.
Probably not only socialism and communism, but for all religions, all isms.
Yes, because they don't take their obligations to themselves or other people seriously. They consider everything to be somebody else's job. You know, it's like these kinds of people don't, if there's rubbish in the street or a mess somewhere, these people don't clean it up or they don't do anything about it because it's not their job, right? They're just not. It's somebody else's job, so they don't think about it. But the point is that everything is connected to everything. Great Leonardo da Vinci quote. Everything is connected to everything. And so you can't ignore one thing, because that destroys the process. If you ignore one thing, the process doesn't function, the process doesn't work. So in essence, to ignore one thing can be to destroy all things. So it's very important to understand the links, or how things connect down through time, because these are the understandings of order, the understandings of logic, the understandings of efficiency, the understandings of human obligations. Because when you compartmentalize, there's a danger that you don't see the conflict in your own ideas. Yeah. So this was the problem I talked about earlier with this woman who thought that all adults were angels, because she believed that, and she kept that information in a box in her mind, and everything else that she learned, she put in a different box, so that she couldn't put it in the same box, because that would be a conflict. So she had to like switch her brain from one set of thinking to another set of thinking, which meant there was a disconnect, which meant things didn't flow. There was not flow. Things are not logical. You can't have flow if part of the chain is missing. So you've got to accept everything that is for what it is. Yeah, you have to accept every tree in the forest for the fact that it's a tree, and that you can't walk through it. You have to walk around it. Right? So you've got to be sensible about your use of your senses, in essence, there. And again, conscientiousness is not something which people recognize or discuss or talk about a lot, and this is understood from the fact that it's a new word for you, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a new word for you because people don't, how can I say, people don't think about it a lot, or they're directed away from thinking about it because they're told you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so, and there's a very special term in psychology. There's something called the Big Five. And the Big Five are the most important personality characteristics that define who we are as human beings. Now, it's not an absolute thing. It's not a perfect theory, because it's just a theory. But what it does is it allows people to define more clearly where the faults or mistakes are in their character. So Big Five, what is it? Many contemporary personality psychologists believe that there are 5 basic dimensions of personality. So it's a simplification. It's a simplification, but it's a useful simplification.
Mhm.
Often referred to as the Big Five personality traits. The 5 broad, very big personality traits described by the theory are extraversion, I can't even say that, extraversion, being extravagant, extraversion, agreeableness, openness, conscientiousness, and neuroticism.